This episode is powered by Mod 42. Their modular approach represents the future of data center infrastructure. By combining innovation, design with cutting-edge technology, they deliver scalable, efficient, and sustainable solutions that transforms how businesses deploy and manage their computing resources. Welcome to Beyond the Megawatt. I'm Valerie Crafton, Risk and Site Strategist. I'm joined by my co-host, Mara Irvin, reuse expert and real estate visionary. Together, we are the Data Center Darlings. We're spotlighting the voices and ideas powering digital infrastructure's future. Let's dive in and go beyond the megawatt.
Thanks for everyone for joining us again today. My co-host Val Crafton is with us, and we have a very special guest with us today, Michael Wilson. Really excited to have him on the show. His passions are very much in line with Valerie and myself and why we really started this podcast. Michael runs operations for GenTech. And Michael, why don't you just introduce yourself real quickly, GenTech in general, and just give us your backstory, where you grew up, how you got into the trade, and we'll just kind of kick things off with that.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, my name is Michael Wilson. I am the Chief Operating Officer of GenTech, and GenTech's a really unique educational provider where we are able to go into schools and provide kids with a authentic computer science program. So we are able to bring in not just the teachers, but all of the equipment and the curriculum that we design into the classroom for kids and really get them the chance to experience real world technologies taught by teachers who have backgrounds in those fields as well. So I actually fell into GenTech when I was a college student studying at GCU. I went there for IT and cybersecurity, and in my junior year, I was like, well, I should probably do something in my field. I'd worked restaurant all throughout college, just kind of to get by. And I was like, well, it's probably time for a change. And I found GenTech just looking on Indeed and started teaching kids how to build computers. That was my first job was with them was being an instructor, going in the classroom and teaching kids. We brought in like practice computers, so the kids like were hands-on, getting to go inside the computer, pull out the hard drive, pull out the RAM, the CPU, all of that, getting to learn how they talk to each other, how they connect, all of that. And then we did some software side of things to learn about operating systems, networking. And then at the end of the class, we were able to give the kids take-home computers. So they were working on the practice ones, but then we brought new refurbished computers and monitors and keyboards, mice, all of it that the kids got to take home for the program. And that's really when I got to go to that deployment event is what made me fall in love with what we're doing in education in general. Like, I honestly never thought I was going to get into education, but then I taught a class and just really got to see the impact that it had on those kids. And it really made me feel like I wish I had this when I was a kid. I would have been one of these kids super stoked and super excited to get this kind of opportunity, get to take a computer home, after taking this after school class with us. And from there, I worked really closely with our founder, Debbie Kavesdi, who was a longtime teacher in the Paradise Valley School District, also worked with ADE in curriculum development. And she actually started GenTech, 22 of her high school students. And they had the idea of our tech support store. But by the time I had come on, we were also teaching in classes. And we've expanded greatly since then. We went from just being in 2 districts in about 10, 15 schools to now going into this new school year. We've been in over 14 school districts and 100 schools across the valley. So been some incredible growth and really have had a chance to.
I love the students who are part of building that, because I think so many times we get it wrong when us adults try to create something that comes into the form that's well received by the students. So I love that they were behind the vision and were able to kind of create that too. That's pretty cool. I do want to back up a little bit, because we definitely want to spend a lot of time about this, but your entry into this, obviously you didn't have that hands-on STEM at an early age, but what got you on track? What was your backstory and how did you get in?
Yeah. So what kind of got me into tech is, like, as a kid, like a lot of kids even today, I loved video games. Played a lot of video games growing up, and I thought I wanted to like go into game design, things like that. And then I was like, that's a lot of math. And I took calculus in high school, and I was like, I'm not going to do all that math in college. So ended up finding my way into IT and cyber. And I think what kind of led me there was my dad. He was in the Air Force. He was a aircraft mechanic, but he was also very hands-on working on computers as a kid. So while like I didn't have like my own personal computer going even to like a week before I went into college, I did get to experience some of that, like being around my dad when he was working on his computers or building computers, and that kind of just nudged me into that direction. I always felt like it was something that was interesting. Like me personally, I think the fact that we're on a video call talking with basically no latency, and like there's a lot of things that go on in the background that even make this possible. And I wanted to learn how that worked. And I feel really lucky and fortunate that I kind of fell into that, even though throughout my K-12 schooling, I didn't have any tech classes or any programs that kind of pushed me in this direction. I just had a dad who was into it and shared his love with me. But I think that's what really kind of inspires me to want to be able to provide that opportunity for more kids who may not have someone in their life who has that technical background or who is involved in that field, because you don't know if you're good or if you like something, have an affinity towards it, if you never get to try it. And that's a really big part of what we do and what I do. Is I just want to give kids the opportunity to explore different technologies. Like I like IT and cyber, someone else might like 3D modeling, coding, web design, so many different areas of technology, and we're able to bring that in at many different levels and let the kids kind of explore and figure out what it is that they like.
I love it. I will say that is one really cool thing that's happening with the gaming kids is they may not even be thinking about school. They could be flunking through middle school, high school, but they know how to take apart a computer and install new RAM. And that in itself is like, it's like, to your point, it's like, oh, can I get a career out of this? Actually you could. So
yeah, and I think that's huge. Like sometimes you don't realize that you have like marketable skills. And that's a big part of GenTech and being found with students, is that those students and all of us, we have marketable skills that we can share with others. So yeah, I think that's a great point that you made there.
And I love that it really goes back to the root of what Michael and I have been talking about when we've connected, is just that early exposure, right? Both of our stories come from having parents who exposed us very early on, that led us sort of driving toward the careers we ended up gravitating toward. And I think for both of us, we said, we looked at that and said, well, there it is. That's the thing that we have to, from a passion perspective. I know for me, it's a passion to bring the trade awareness to children. And for you, that computer science side of things, it was that early exposure that really planted those seeds in my heart. And it just kept growing and growing. The more I learned, the more I loved. And I kept wanting to be a part of it. And I wanted to bring that back to the children and get that exposure out there. Because I know there's just one, we don't have programs in the school. And so to be able to bring those programs inside is just really exciting for me.
Yeah, and a lot of these schools, and Michael, you can probably talk to this, a lot of the schools like the underserved districts, they are open and they're asking like, hey, come into our schools. But what we can't just show up and say, hey, this is the plan. Like, this is the plan. We actually have to resource these projects. To your point, you have to bring everything with you. So maybe talk a little bit through that, some of the programs that you are creating. And for our listeners, this is something, we want to create a toolbox, right, where we can learn from what you've done there and replicate that in some of these other cities across the country.
Yeah, so what we've done is really take the lift off of schools for having to create and develop their own STEM program or computer science program. We hear it all the time about the lack of resources that schools have, and they're now being kind of expected to do more with less, basically. Preparing kids for this technological future that we're entering, or that we're really in, with not the necessary resources. So that's why we thought of, by providing the teacher and bringing in the curriculum and bringing in all the equipment that goes with those programs. So like one of the new programs that we've designed like over the summer is a new robotics and automation course. So expanding on the current robots that we use, but adding in more automation. So like you may have seen videos of like the Amazon like factory floors where they have like the robots that go and like pick the packages and then bring them to someone to go actually package and, you know, send it off to the driver. So like we have a project where the kids are doing that with these Sphero RVR robots. So we have to automate them. We have to program them to be able to sense and detect other robots in the room and go from point A to point B and then back to go pick up a package and then bring it back to their team basically. But everyone, there'd be multiple teams in the room. They press go at one time. They have to be able to program the logic behind not, you know, hitting each other, knowing when to stop, who has the right of way. A lot of those kind of complex things that the engineers for Amazon had to think about, and really bringing in some of those real world challenges into the classrooms. So kids are like, they understand why they're doing it. And I think that's a huge point within education, is like, why are we doing this, right? Kids now, that's the big question. Like, why do I need to know that? Why do I need that? I can Google it, I can TikTok it, like whatever, right? So understanding how they can create with the technologies. And then for the schools, now it's not, okay, here's some kits, but you got to send your teacher to a professional development to learn it. Or here's the teacher, but you have to buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. That's, you know, and then what if it breaks? And then what do you do next year with the kids? And then what about when the new things come out? So by having this kind of full turnkey solution for them, we kind of just asked like, hey, give us a room with your kids and we'll take it from here. So then each year, you know, technology changes super fast and curriculum standards can not move at that same speed. So we're able to constantly update and develop new curriculum and get that in the hands of the kids. So that way they're learning relevant skills. So it makes it a lot simpler and a lot easier for the kids to, or for the schools to kind of bring us on board by being able to bring in kind of everything that's needed for the program. And it's a more sustainable model is what we've seen, because schools that do have STEM programs going on, they're usually headed by like a really passionate teacher, and which is amazing that for the schools that do have it, but not every school has that. And then
if the teacher leaves,
yep,
we've seen that. And then there's this big gap, like, oh, whoa, who's going to take this over? Which I think peer learning and having them step up like you do as in those leadership positions, I think they can also help fill the gap too, and the training and education as well.
Yeah.
Well, we also have open borders when it comes to the schools within like Arizona specifically, and I'm sure there are other states who function like this, where you don't actually have to stick to the school that's in your neighborhood. So you could go to a school that has a STEM program built into what they have. But the reality is that's nice. It's nice to say that you can do that. But what I love about Michael and I were talking, you know, before, we were talking about how, you know, the programs trying to get into the inner cities, when you're a single mom or a single parent and you're trying to, you know, raise children and coordinate with your co-parent, or maybe you don't have a co-parent to coordinate for whatever reason, the idea of being able to get children into a different school district and have them picked up when your school doesn't necessarily align with a working day is a lot of work and next to impossible. And so the fact that we can bring these types of programs into like inner city areas to make it to their doorstep, so they don't have to feel like they've got to go to a totally different school district just so their children can have access to these types of programs, I think is one of my favorite things about Michael's program.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that. And yeah, that is a big focus for us, is really like we wholeheartedly believe that like just because of your zip code shouldn't determine the level of education, especially with technology. Because yeah, we see that these kids in the inner city or in rural areas or just any underserved areas, they're just as bright, just as smart as the kids who are in the more affluent and wealthier areas. And you know, being able to bring that to them, you know, when their school may not be able to afford a STEM teacher and then $20,000 worth of equipment to teach them, you know, when we're able to be able to bring that in for them, it's huge. And I've seen it so many times in hundreds of classrooms, and it's a joy. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and this program, you know, these students who often fall through the cracks in these underserved communities, when they finally get this opportunity, they realize it really quickly. I mean, you can see it on their faces. Their faces light up, all the things. And so I wanted to zero in on that, because there's also something that we see with them actually taking that and it doing something for them, because typically they come from homes and families where they don't really show, they don't have a way to even show up. They don't feel valued. And we're giving them something, especially when you're solving real world problems, right? They actually come in and say, hey, I can actually make an impact. I'm making an impact. And students, whether that's through STEM or whatever, these students who are falling through the cracks, they need something that they actually feel like they're worth something and that they're valued, so that they do want to do something with their life. And so I think it's twofold. I think it starts to build that confidence in them. And then also we're giving them a path.
Yeah, I saw the same thing with the hands-on heroes, is not watching the shops and so forth leave the schools, and us eliminating the option or the exposure for the trades very early on. It just really breaks my heart. And when I started going into the schools, and the same thing, I saw the same thing happen when I started talking to them about all the different types of construction workers that it took to build their schools. And I asked them, who wants to be a construction worker? And they wouldn't say, I want to be a construction worker. They would say, I want to be the one that turns on the lights. I'm like, well, that's an electrician. And it certainly is why it inspired me to start writing all of the children's books associated with the trades. And we're in the process of creating productions around doing the day in the life of an electrician, for example. And so that a teacher from anywhere can roll in a projector or a TV and really allow children to see someone different with a diverse background, not the typical person you see working on the side of the road. And because because it's so rare to see someone different do that job, being able to bring that into the classroom very easily. We're going to be on Amazon Prime and YouTube, just to have those productions very easily brought into the classroom. Have the book that tells you how to become an electrician, and then a STEM kit that goes with it, similar to what Michael was saying with the computer science and the coding and the robots. Being able to put that in their hands and then literally let the light bulbs light up and show them how a current works and how a current works, and how that light bulb actually lights up, and put that power in their hands, literally. Seeing the light bulbs and their eyes light up is just, oh my goodness, nothing warms your heart more. It's a pretty exciting thing to bring that into and expose them very early on of all the possibilities. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I love that we started this conversation, because Valerie, you have girls, and now their mom is a construction worker. So this is real life, right? This isn't something that you created just, ad hoc. This is your life. And so maybe talk a little bit about how this partnership came to be. And I also want to know, was the Construction Workers My Mom was the first book?
Yes, that was the first book. It was inspired by my girls' school was having Heroes of the Neighborhood Week, and the Heroes of the Neighborhood. Asked the director of the school, hey, I see you're having a firefighter, a police officer, a nurse, but I don't see construction worker on the list. And so she said, well, why would I have a construction worker? I said, well, they're the ultimate neighborhood heroes. We wouldn't have a fire station or a police station. We wouldn't have infrastructure or internet or school or houses or anything for that matter. I mean, they're the ultimate neighborhood hero. Hence, that's where my nonprofit came from, Hands on Heroes, because I believe we couldn't survive without the construction worker. And here we have this huge problem in the industry where we need laborers for construction. But I asked that director, I said, well, since it's this week, would you like me to represent that person? And she said, you're in construction? You don't seem like the type. And I said, what type is that? And she just looked at me and went, we'd love to have you. Yeah. And it's just here, this is a female looking at me. It's unconscious bias. It's the exposure. It's because of the lack of representation. And so, I moved on. I walked in, I had all my PPE on that day. And I walked into the classroom, and my girls did not recognize who I was, because who walks around in the house with PPE on? You put it on when you get to the job site. And so when I took my hat off, my safety glasses off, I'm like, hey guys, it's me. And they're like, my mom's a construction worker. And it was just such a sweet moment. And I had brought these little party hats that look like hard hats for all the kids. I had moms come up to me at birthday parties that year and says, oh, you were the one. My daughter walked around for weeks with that hard hat on, and my heart was just so warmed.
They started a trend because they were like, all the kids were like, we want this for at our parties. I love
yes,
it.
they want these at their parties. And so after my daughter had yelled out, hey, my mom is a construction worker, a little boy right next to her said, moms can be construction workers. And I went, yes, mom, not only can moms be construction workers, anybody can be construction workers. And we just talked about what it meant to be a construction worker. They were very fascinated by my vest and all the pockets and my laser light that I use to point to things that are high. I mean, we talked about all kinds of things, but it inspired me to write that first book, which was really about not letting society tell you what you can or cannot be. And it was my story. It's at an elementary level book, but it was my story. And I started reading that book to children in the school. And when, like I said before, when I went in there and started talking to them about the different trades that built it, I realized I had to go write more books so that I had something to hand to them and give them that book and say, hey, here's how you can become an electrician if that's what you want to become. Here's how you can become a structural worker if that's what you want to become. And it does a couple of things. It's a book they get to take home. The parents are still reading to them at bedtime, and we're educating the parents indirectly. The last page tells you exactly how to become one. Hey, maybe that parent wants to transition. I was just at the Women's Summit, and there was a woman who said, I've been doing hair for 30 years. And now I'm going to go and become going into IT security. And I said, that is amazing. So that it's never too late. You never know who you're going to inspire. But at the end of the day, we're also educating parents, letting them know that college isn't the only option. This episode is brought to you by BCS Switchgear, where power meets precision. From obsolete breakers to the new 15 to 34.5 kV switchgear and low break switches, BCS delivers fast answers and custom engineered solutions that keep mission critical systems online. And I realized it just kept growing from there. I realized I had to make the STEM kits. I had to get the 501c3 nonprofit so I can let other people be a part of it. And then I met Michael through Brian Darby. He introduced us.
I was wondering if that was.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, so come full circle. And I'm talking to Brian about this, and he's like, oh, you have to meet Michael. And so Michael and I start talking. He's talking about how he's already in all the schools, and he was happy to partner with me and help me get in there because this was another part of STEM that it was underrepresented. And so I'm very excited about the future of my 100 schools in 100 days launch that I want to get out there once we get the production.
Michael's sending laptops home and you're sending books home. I like it. So what ages are we starting with? I know there's different programs here, but Michael, what ages are you starting with your?
So we start our programs with kindergarten, and we're actually hoping to pilot a pre-K class this year. But yeah, we want to get the kids started as soon as possible with these things to really open their eyes and kind of unlock the, like, hey, this is the field I can go into. And I think just like Valerie mentions, like with construction and, people thinking like, oh, like women can't or girls can't be in construction, or, the unconscious bias that they have there. Mm-hmm. It's very similar in the STEM fields, maybe not to the same extent, but it's a lot of times it is a very male dominated field. And, we see that if you get to the 6th grade and you haven't had like any exposure, most likely you're just going to kind of write it off like, oh, I'm not going to go into do something like that, basically.
There's a lot of statistics and studies that have been shown that by the time children get to junior high, and even worse when they get to high school, they've already got their minds made up about trades and careers and whether or not they're good at science or good at math or computer science is even a job for them. It's been proven over and over and over. We really have to hit those early stages. So mine's the same way. It's the preschool all the way through 6th grade, planting those seeds so that we can just keep watering them.
Yeah. And what we've seen too is that when we start the kids much younger, I can move them so much quicker, especially with our instructors who have the background knowledge. We're able to take kids, if they start in the program in kindergarten, by 5th grade, we have them programming, and sometimes sooner if they're moving really fast, programming in scripts in Python or JavaScript, doing advanced circuitry and automation. It's things that you a lot of times would see in like a high school program that they're able to do in middle school. So because we started them so soon, because kids are like sponges. And I think that's the great part about it. Like, you teach a kid something young, they're gonna hold on to it. They're really gonna absorb that information. So
they're curious. They're literally like sponges. They'll ask tons of questions. They'll ask you questions you had never even thought about before. And you're like, that's a great question. I've never even, I think I need to learn a little bit more just so I can answer that, because they get you really thinking outside the box again, their creativity and their questions and the sponge. They just want to keep learning more and more and more and more. So that's my favorite part as well.
I love it.
So creative too. So
yeah. And Michael, I do want to get your thoughts around this, because we can create the best programs, right? And it seems like you and Val both have some tremendous resources. We've figured out what we need to take into the schools, but there's another aspect to this, because it's not just the technical component and introducing them to and undoing the stigma around trades, but there's a cultural and there's a social thing that has to happen in tandem with this outreach. And because we have to pull these kids out, right? And to find them where they're at. And can you kind of talk through what we need to be aware of as we build these programs, and any aspects around the mentorship that we need to remember and be cognizant of when we're working with kids, especially in these underserved areas?
Yeah, so I think a big part of that is, like you said, meet them where they're at. And like the first thing, and also getting to know your kids, like just coming in and just like, all right, cool. My name is Mr. Wilson. I've done IT and cybersecurity. Now we're going to dive into, what hacking means, whatever the topic is, or digital citizenship, whatever it is, right? Really get to know the kids, I think, is a big thing, and understand the environment that you're in, because some of those kids may have, just different lived experiences and life experiences, depending on where they're from and what their background is, and really kind of creating it into a conversation where I'm not just like lecturing and saying, all right, this, and this is what this is like. It's like, hey, what do you guys know about this field? Like, when you hear someone say cybersecurity, what do you think about, right? And then it really gets the kids start to be engaged and to think about like, oh, and they really learn that way too, a lot better, versus if I'm just standing there talking at them for an hour. And part of what we do with our programs is we hire instructors from the local areas to go into those neighboring schools. So a lot of times they have very similar backgrounds and life experiences, or like in Central Phoenix, we have a lot of students who are Spanish only still. And I'll get them in 4th, 5th, sometimes even middle school, and English is they're still learning. But I have a dozen of instructors who are bilingual, so we can teach our lessons in both English and Spanish and keep them going. So, kind of bridge through that language barrier. So I think that's a big part of it as well. And then for schools to also understand, like, it takes to bring in partners to help them with these things, right? Teachers are doing an amazing job in the classroom from, these things that I've seen and just being in the classroom a lot, but it's a huge lift for them to expect them to, teach about computer science or about the trades, especially when they don't have that background, right? So, but there's people like myself and Valerie, and there's other organizations that exist out there who do have those backgrounds and do have those resources that would love to partner with the schools. So I think just being open to those partnerships and kind of collaborating to see like, all right, where can we kind of meet halfway so this works for both of us? So that way we can ultimately do what we're all here to do, both as organizations and as schools, and, provide for our kids and help our kids and educate our kids.
I love that. Yeah, Brian, with the Arizona Data Center Alliance, that's one of the, I would say he focuses on leveraging the local resources. Don't go around them. Go in there and leverage local resources. They're already building something. They just need help. And to your point, they know the community. They know where the help is really needed. And then I agree, parlaying what you guys are bringing to the industry, it's just going to make an even more powerful impact in those local communities. So Val, maybe walk us through, if there's any listeners that are here on today, they want to get involved. How can they sign up for this 100-day program, and where is it available?
It can be available anywhere. It's really for the hands-on heroes. It's really set up so that anybody, you can order the kits, reach out to me directly through our website, handsonheroes.net, And you can just send a note there and we can send you the kits. You can sponsor a classroom in your own neighborhood. If maybe it's your own children's classrooms, maybe you want to be the one that volunteers and puts the PPE on and walks in and talks to them. But if they want to get involved, they can just reach out through www.handsonheroes.net.
Nice. And then Michael, how can folks get involved in supporting what you're doing as well on your side?
Yeah, they can kind of same thing. They can go to our website, gentechedu.com, and there's a contact form that will go directly to me, and I'll be able to engage with them there.
And where are you getting your laptops? Do you need laptops?
So we're doing desktops and laptops. We actually have partnerships with a nonprofit organization here in Arizona called AZ Strut. So we've been partnering with them for probably going on over 5 years now since I've been with the company. And so it's, going on over 5 years. So we're able to, they take computers that come from like big companies or even school districts and they replace them, but they're still usable. And
we've seen that model. Yeah, we've seen that model. There's a Eliminate the Digital Divide. We had Dr. Sharon Jones on. They do that in North Carolina. So if anybody's listening, if you want to know how to get laptops in the hands of kids, get your companies to donate their old laptops or computers. And then to your point, Michael, you refurbish them and then you can get them back into the hands of students that need them.
Yes. Yep. And then, even if the technology is broken, then it's great for practice. So that way the kids can open it up, see what it's like on the inside of a device. I'm sure no matter where you're at in the US, there's
That's a good point. I never really thought about that. So even the laptops that are outdated and really can't be repurposed, it's still a great way for them to learn how to take them apart and just get familiar with the inside of the computer
components. And
So don't throw away your technology. I always tell people like recycle it. We have a physical storefront in our Phoenix, like bring it here and we'll cycle it for you because we don't want our world to look like Wally's. So yeah, no matter where you're at, don't throw away your technology. There's somewhere you can recycle it, I promise. So
I love it. And then Valerie, what about donors or sponsors to help bring more of the hands-on heroes into the classrooms? Is there anything there that they could help with?
Yeah, so we are looking for a few things right now. We're looking for volunteers to take them into your neighborhoods. That would be one way. We have the resources for you, so you can do, that's one approach. The second approach is to sponsor the day in the life production video so that we can put it on Amazon Prime and YouTube and really get this into the classrooms at any point. And we're also looking for safety moment sponsors as well, because we want the children not only just to understand that safety first. I don't want them to start thinking and watching these videos and say, oh, I can be an electrician, and then just trying to make sure that that's part of our industry is always speaking in safety first. So there's a card that they get in a kit and it has instructions in there, but it walks them through a safety moment. And before we go into the field and we look in a day in the life, we'll have a safety moment then there as well. Not only that, but safety is a career and a job in itself. So it's just, we need safety people.
A lot of dads and moms fall off ladders. So we could start teaching ladders last in the classroom at a very young age.
Very young age, because you hear about the stories where the little boy wants to be Superman and he jumps out the window thinking he can fly just because he put a cape on. And so we're dealing with children, right? So we've got to remember that they don't have the frontal lobe development of reasoning skills there yet. And so that safety piece is really, really important to me. An accident can happen. And when it comes to trades and using tools, just making sure we're instilling that piece is really important to me. But yeah, it's just looking for the sponsors to help create the productions. We have a production team. We just need the sponsors and the money to go and create that production. We're going to have our first two that are coming out is electrical and heavy equipment driver. And then here in 2 months, we'll have the mechanical and structural steel. And then every couple months, we're just going to keep releasing more and more of the trades and the programs. And so very excited about it.
I think you and Michael should collaborate on a book. I'm just going to speak.
We've already talked about it.
Well, once you get that ready, we'll have to have you back, Michael.
I think it's a great time to talk about the audacious question.
Okay.
We'll put Michael on the spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, a good question is why we see the need and the necessity for both the trades and computer science in the world today, and especially just the workforce need. And why I feel that why is it not a standard for kids to have to go to learn computer science in school?
100%.
Why can you go through Like I went through K-12 not ever having to being required to take a computer science class. And I think that's something in today's world that definitely should be changed, and that's really should just be kind of across the board to prepare kids for the future workforce. Because ultimately, in my mind, that's really what education is for. We need to prepare kids for the world, and that means they need to be educated for the jobs of the world. So.
And to that point, can you give us a story or something around, because this is where it resonates with folks and where they really understand why this is so important. Do you have any students or any scenarios where you actually saw the impact of what this really means to students?
Oh, I have a lot of stories. I think I have two that I can share really quickly. One is going into a classroom in downtown Phoenix in the Phoenix Elementary School District, and we were talking about robots and automation. And there's a few kids in the back. They're just like, you can tell just by body language and everything. They're like, I don't want to be there. So I asked them like, hey, what's up? Like, why? Are you just not engaged, kind of thing? Like, you're not interested, or what it is? He's like, well, my family, they work out in the farms in Yuma, and they're using robots now to pick the crops instead of, so they're going to eventually lose their jobs, and I don't like this stuff. And I'm like, well, who's going to program those robots? Who designs those robots? Like, that's a job that you can have, right? That we can start preparing you for. And they're like, it really can see, like, it opened their eyes, like, oh, like, yeah, I didn't think of that. Like, someone has to maintain these robots, someone has to design these, do all of the, well, it takes away a job, it creates, several more in the process. Other stories is I've had actually multiple kids who have went through our programs when they were in like 7th, 8th grade, like middle school or even high school. And then when they got to like junior, senior year, they actually applied to be techs with us, to be teachers, because they loved it so much, and they came back and they were like, yeah, I want to do this. And now I have had 3 in the past 2 years who have taken the program when they were younger, and now they're working with us. So we're really seeing that it kind of is going full circle of like being in the classroom, and now you want to be that person to share that knowledge. And I think the teachers that they had really resonated with them. So yeah, I think it has a huge impact, and really to also just, kids don't know these careers exist. Like, again, I think that's the biggest part of it from that first class, that I was in. Like, they don't know that these are jobs or career pathways. So, like if you think of the traditional like K-12 model, like what kind of career pathways does it kind of prepare you for? Like, if you don't go into any like special elective, or you don't have a program like GenTech's or Valerie's or anything like that, what does it ultimately prepare you for? So I think that's why we need to have a requirement for computer science in schools.
I love that. And it's not just the exposure, because we also have to make it a reality, because we don't want them to just to dream about it and see it and say, oh, that's just not something I could, it's too far-fetched. I don't have my money, my family doesn't have money for college, or what's the pathway? So we're not just exposing them. You guys have created a program and a resource and say, hey, it's not just the exposure, there's a pathway, and we're going to come into the communities and help build that and give them that path.
And I can share a story of, what happens when you don't have that exposure and you don't have those programs in place. I recently had gone to a high school and was speaking to some seniors. There were 180 students in this group. And I asked among the students here, how many of you know what you're going to do after graduation? And I can count on my one hand how many raised their hand. And I was actually a little surprised by that. I don't know why I was surprised by that, but I just wasn't expecting just a small few to raise their hand. Maybe they're on the fence. Maybe they kind of know and they were being shy, but I'm telling you, there were less than 1% raised their hand. And I said, well, let me tell you what this looks like, because I've witnessed folks who think that college is the only way, and they don't know what they want to do. So they think they're going to go and do some general studies. They'll figure out their major, and they're like, well, I kind of like this. And they select this major, and then they change their major 2 or 3 times. And having gone to college and witnessed this firsthand, I watched folks kind of flounder around, not really having a focused goal, and really there because they thought this was the only option for them, and this was their path to success. And no one told them anything different. And what I watched happen is those folks who went to college thinking that was their only option flounder around. And then what happens? They end up with a lot of debt, no degree, and they drop out with no job. And that was unfortunate. And I shared that story with the students. They said, well, if you don't know what you're going to do, maybe you should go try some internships, go try out some different things, go do some informational interviews and learn a little bit more about different careers, and consider the trades. Consider becoming a data center operator. So, I went through all of that with them. But one of the things I really pushed on was the trades. And I said, let me tell you, once I graduated, because I was one of the ones that was focused, I knew what I wanted to do. And when I graduated, I ended up in the field as a project manager. And what I noticed is I wasn't necessarily managing the project. I was the assistant project manager. I was learning to manage the project. It wasn't my site yet. But there were a ton of peers out there who were with the trades, and they owned their project. They were the person on the job in charge. For the last 4 years, they have spent getting paid to learn how to run those projects for those trades, while I was paying someone else to learn how to become a project manager. And the difference between the two of us is I was paying off debt when I graduated. They were buying houses and they were running their jobs. And I asked the students, I go, which one sounds more glamorous to you? And so I'm hoping I planted some seeds that day, but it was just unfortunate. And maybe that was the first time any of them had even considered something different than college. Any of them had even considered something to go work with their hands, or even considered construction as a trade to go work in that. So I think that if we can sit there and Michael and I can go into these schools very early on and expose them to computer science, expose them to all of the possibilities of the future, I think it does a couple of things. One, it changes the biases towards those jobs. Two, I mean, from my perspective on Michael's, what he's bringing in the school is the future. He changed the student's mind from being scared that someone's taking his family's jobs to realizing that it's not taking over my job. It's the fact that I am going to adapt and learn how to utilize the tools and learn how to program those robots who are actually helping in the field. So it's an extension of the human. And the folks whose jobs are replaced are the ones who don't learn and evolve with it and understand what that means for them in the future. And so I think it's just a really beautiful thing that planting those seeds very early on is 100% the key ingredient to the success of our future.
And the more we get this, so thank you both for all the work you're doing, because the more we can get into the schools at this age, they start to see that they can be part of this. They can be part of AI. They can be part of robotics, and they are our future, right? The kids are our future. So starting them at an early age and getting them on the pathways to actually help build and support this infrastructure as we go. Well, I think that's the end of things. And Michael, we really appreciate your time. Valerie, this is really important work, and there's a crisis in this industry for, kind of selfishly, we need more resources. So thank you for all your work. And if anyone's listening and you didn't capture all the ways to contribute, just go to our description on our wherever you're listening, and you'll see the handles and ways to get involved or reach out to Valerie or myself and Michael, and we'll be glad to help get you guys plugged in. So
yeah. And thank you, BCS, and our title sponsor, for allowing us to have this mic on and be able to share some of this really important content.
Yeah. Thank you guys both for having me. I really, really appreciate this really fun conversation.